After checking the weather and finished packing, you're ready for your next trip. But it feels like something's missing. Oh right, that online content I don't have time to watch. This problem can be solved by configuring your smartphone with the ability to download content on the go. Configuring this on Android is very straightforward. The first step is to go to the Play Store and download VLC for viewing our files once they've been backed up, if you're not going to use the default file app built into the phone. The second app we need is Termux, which we'll use to download all the additional components to make backing up online media work. Next is to install all the required packages for the bash wrapper tool on Termux with the package command and installing yt-dlp with pip3. After that, the third step is to git clone my bash wrapper tool that will help automate some of the functionality of yt-dlp, which will be the tool used to back up online content to our smartphone to be later reviewed when we do not have internet. The fourth step is to mount the phone's file system to Termux by running the termux-setup-storage command so that we can move files between Termux back to the file system of our phone. The fifth step is to back up the desired media. And step 6 is to open it up in VLC or another method to watch and review when you have time, like during your flight. To demonstrate this, I'm going to run through the same steps in Android Studio. If you don't have Android Studio installed on your machine, you can go to Android Studio Install, which will give you the instructions and specs for your machine. And then to get the actual installer, we go to just Studio, scroll down to the bottom, which I've already done, and grab the installer for your operating system. In this case, I'm using a Linux machine, so I'm just going to grab the Linux tar gzip, move this out of the way. I have already removed the .gz and untarred the archive, and it gives us this directory for Android Studio. For installing it, the installer states that we need to move it to a directory, so I moved it to user local as the installer suggests. However, by default, it's not in our standard path, so what I ended up doing is if we do aliases to show over aliases, and I do grep for studio.sh, I've created an alias where if I just type Android Studio, it will just launch it as normal, just to make it easier instead of having to type this full path. Run this command and it will launch Android Studio. Now, because we're not developing any applications, we're just showing off some default functionality of Android, we just need to create a project. If you want to test an Android version that is not installed on the Android Studio that you have set up, you go to the gear icon, go to SDK Manager, click on that, and then under Android SDK, you can select all the different versions of Android that you need. So if we need, let's say we're testing Android 13, we just hit Android 13, apply, and it would install. But in this case, I'm not going to do that, so I'll just do cancel. We're going to go to create a new project. No activity. We'll just give it a generic name like video backup content test. Switch to our project. It'll build the project, just give it some time. The project is finished building, and also when you create a new project, it will spawn its own window. So this project will have its own individual window, so we'll just maximize this one. And since we're not testing any custom application, we'll just do the run button, which will launch our device and start our phone as if we had a new device. Because I've already done the steps as before in the previous segment of how to configure it, it's all set up and ready to go. And even though I've set up a new project, it has all the same things. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So we've installed VLC in Termux. We've made sure that these are, let's double check. Yeah, it's all set up. So update our system, install ffmpeg for yt-dlp, install Python to install yt-dlp, install git so we can git clone a wrapper tool, mount the storage, and just copy the history just for the video's sake. But now we need a video, so I will zoom out, go to Google, we'll just go to YouTube. Okay, that's really messed up. I'll just type it by hand, that's fine. Go back to Termux. I always forget how messed up the YouTube browser is. So let's say I want to back up my previous video that I had. We would do YouTube wrapper tool, Then we would do opt, or actually you could just do bash opt. And then we want our format to be video. We want our link to be YouTube, watch, run it, it will grab the video as an MP4. Now all we need to do is move our video into storage, movies. Now that it's in our movies directory, we will go into VLC. Go into VLC, go into browse. We need to give it permissions real quick. Now we can go into internal storage, into our movies directory, and there's our back to video, which, okay. And look at that, it is playing on our local phone, or simulated phone. So now you can watch your content on the go. This can be done even if you have an Apple device by first going to the Apple App Store and downloading VLC like before. And instead of termux, installing ISH shell, which will be the place to configure everything else. In this case, instead of Android Linux, it's just Alpine Linux. The second step is to open ISH shell and install ffmpeg that is needed by yt-dlp with the apk add command. The third step is to install the yt-dlp command. In this case, instead of doing it from like the package manager with apk add, we could just wget the standalone binary from the yt-dlp GitHub, chmod it. The fourth step is to download the desired media as normal that we want to back up. And final step is to go into VLC and navigate to the folder of ISH shell. The default directory when you open ISH shell will be /root. So going to the root directory and playing our backed up media for reviewing on the go. Okay, but what about websites and blogs I want to back up? That's a great question, and the solution is very easy. Web pages can be backed up to our device with a simple browser extension. The browser used will be Firefox. After Firefox has been installed on your device, open Firefox and install the backup extension SingleFile. Next, visit the web page you would like to back up with SingleFile. This will take some time, but once it finishes, it will be saved as a single HTML file. And lastly, go into your phone's file system or use your device's HTML viewer app to review the web page again. And this concludes this video. I hope you learned something and thank you for watching. If you have any other travel questions, please leave a comment, or maybe I can answer them in another video with my own travel tips that nobody asked for. Hope to see you all in the next one, and take care.